The latch clicked like a tiny hammer on bone. Jason slid the deadbolt and the door shut in my face. My dress sleeves brushed the paint as I stepped back. A blouse landed at my feet, then a jacket, then a fist of hangers clattering across the hallway tile. "Get your things," he said through the door. "Kelsey is on her way up." From the stairwell came the hard rhythm of heels and the touch of perfume, sharp and sweet, like a flower sprayed with glass cleaner. Hawthorne Commons hummed with its usual morning sounds. Someone downstairs tamped espresso. Rain scuffed the skylight. The hallway smelled of wet wool and coffee. I bent to gather the clothes because there was nothing else to do. Hangers bit my wrists. A button rolled in a lazy circle near the doormat and disappeared under the baseboard. I could hear drawers opening inside the apartment, then one closing a little too fast. The deadbolt sat in its metal throat, silent and satisfied. The first time I ever crossed that threshold, it had been warm. 6 months after Tom's funeral, after I had stacked sympathy cards in a tidy fan and slept on one side of a bed that suddenly felt like a ledge, Jason called from the same building with a voice I recognized from his little boy years. "Come live with us, Mom," he said. "You should not be alone." I arrived with 2 suitcases and a box of photographs. Kelsey was in the kitchen, slicing onions, talking about a new bakery on Division Street. She handed me a towel and smiled. We ate chicken and rice at the small table by the window and watched the rain turn the parking lot into a sheet of matte silver. My box of photographs sat unopened in a corner. I told myself I would put them up when I knew where the light fell best. The second month, the little corrections began. The hallway light was on all night. Kelsey said, voice bright. "We are covering that electric bill." A week later, Jason came home late and slid his phone onto the counter without looking at me. "Soup again," Kelsey asked, peering into the pot, then tasting. "It is salty." She was not wrong, but she was not gentle. At first I gave them my best explanations. I forgot. I would remember the next time. I had not used so much salt. Her eyebrows told a different story. The remote clicked to another channel when I sat down. My mug slid to the back of the cupboard and then disappeared entirely. I kept misplacing my keys. The key ring felt extra heavy now, not because of weight, but because of meaning. The condo key had a blue plastic tag stamped with Unit 3B. It pinched my skin sometimes when I wrapped my fingers around it, and I would think that is what happens when you grip something too tightly. The lock on our door had a particular sound, a dry metal click that carried a little distance. I learned it the way a woman learns the footfall of a husband or the cough of a child. It was a sound that named who belonged where. The third month, while stacking towels in the hall closet, I found my box of photographs on the floor by the vacuum. The lid was at an angle. A picture of Tom had slid halfway out. It was the one from the ferry deck near Vashon Island, hair wild from windjaw loose in an open laugh. I pressed the lid down and carried the box to my room. The closet shelf bowed a little under the weight. In the evenings, rain braided itself down the window glass. Kelsey talked about privacy the way a dietitian talks about sugar, with rules and schedules and measured portions. Jason laughed at something on his phone while my words settled into the couch cushions. I walked to the park some afternoons and came home with the smell of damp fir needles stuck in my coat. Back in the kitchen, I watched their bodies move around each other, a choreography learned long before I arrived. One night I was at the sink rinsing a pot. The bedroom door down the hall was open 2 inches. Air carried voices as easily as it carried the smell of garlic. "I cannot keep doing this," Kelsey said. "It is the apartment or me." "You know I cannot just kick her out," Jason said low. "She is my mother." There was a silence that felt like a hand covering a mouth. I set the pot down because my hands had started to shake. I could hear a key ring slide across a dresser. The blue plastic tag knocked a wood edge and stopped. A small sound, but it had a shape. It filled the hallway. I slept poorly and woke early. The apartment looked slightly used in the morning, like a shirt someone wore to a long dinner and folded anyway. At the window, the light was the gray of a river rock. On the table sat a folded towel that was not the one I had left there the night before. Dot Rivera from 3A caught me on the stairs that afternoon and offered me a paper bag of basil clippings and an aluminum pie plate filled with dirt. She had the kind of face that looks like it has been left near a laugh for a long time. She asked if I was settling in. I said yes, it sounded correct. She pinched off a sprig and held it under my nose. The basil was spicy and green. When the air feels tight, make something that smells louder, she said. It helps. In my room, the nightstand drawer stuck a little halfway. I nudged it open and touched the manila folder. The paper had a cool, soft feel. Inside were the things Tom and I had kept in a safe, and then I had kept inside me. The deed to Hawthorne Commons Unit 3B, with my name printed cleanly where it needed to be. The Homeowners Association letters. Banking summaries from Cascadia First Bank. I had learned to keep paper in order when the rest of life was not. And after Tom's heart failed on a Tuesday morning in our kitchen, that habit became a spine. There was a small square of yellow near the back of the folder, a sticky tag I had placed on a page out of instinct more than plan. A phone number was written on it for an attorney named Sloan Patel. I closed the folder and slid it back. There are kinds of silence. There is the silence that says rest. There is the silence that says be careful. This was the second kind. I made tea and watched the kettle breathe. The next Saturday, rain lifted and geese stitched themselves into a ragged V over the river. Jason borrowed a truck and took a load of recycling to the depot. Kelsey opened the hall closet while I was reading and stood there long enough for me to feel summoned. "We need this space," she said. "Can you move your coats to your room? Today." Her voice had no question mark. I stood and nodded and reached for wool. The coats carried a decade of cold mornings and spilled coffee, the sleeve where Tom had fallen asleep on my shoulder during a ferry ride. The soup splashes from a winter I thought would never end. I folded each one and set them on my bed. Kelsey watched arms crossed over a fresh white sweater like a guard over a museum painting. When I finished, she said thank you in a voice that was almost polite. Then she took the vacuum from the closet and ran it for a long time. That night the dishwater felt greasy. I washed the same plate twice. Jason came home after the Blazers game and stared at a spot on the carpet. I followed the line of his gaze and saw a faint salt ring where I had spilled a ladle of soup at dinner and wiped it with a wet rag. It had dried while we were sitting in the living room not talking. Kelsey turned on a sitcom and laughed a single loud laugh that had an edge. I watched her watch the screen. The light flickered across her face and made her eyes look metallic. My own face in the window glass looked like paper. The week after, I went out walking and stayed long. The city smelled like rain and cinnamon rolls and exhaust. A bus sighed at a stop. The first yellow leaves pasted themselves to the curb. When I came back, the apartment was quiet. In my room, the box of photographs had been moved again. It sat near the trash can lid, closed the corner of a Polaroid trapped under the edge. I lifted the lid and found the fairy picture, Tom's mouth open mid-laugh. I slid it back in and closed the box. I walked to the fire stairs where Dot kept her plants and sat on the second step. It was cool and smelled like wet terracotta. Dot opened her door and handed me a folded kitchen towel. "This one smells like oranges," she said, and it did. She sat beside me and talked about nothing recipe swaps and grocery prices, and how the elevator had started to stick between floors. The talk filled the air and warmed it a little. That night the bedroom door was open again. The voices came as if it had all been planned to arrive in my ears at that exact moment. "I am serious," Kelsey said. "Find her a place or I am gone." Jason did not speak for a count of 6. "I will figure something out," he said. He did not say what. A cup on my nightstand trembled a little in my hand. The water in it made a shallow ring against the rim. I could picture the keys on their dresser. I could picture the blue plastic tag. I could picture a hand skimming the ring, picking up the keys, walking past a door. The shape of it settled in my throat. I slept with my fingers on the manila folder, not because it could hold me, but because it remembered me. The paper had the steady feel of something that did not get flustered. In the morning, I picked up the hallway pile of clothes that had not made it into my room, and I hung what could be hung. I ate toast standing. I made coffee and sipped it in small circles around the kitchen, while Kelsey read emails at the table, head tilted, nail tapping. Jason came out of the bedroom with a bag and did not look at me. He smelled like aftershave and rain. At noon, the building's front door buzzed and someone let Kelsey's friend in from downstairs. Voices braided themselves together and drifted out quick and bright. I walked back to my room and shut the door and sat on the edge of the bed. The apartment sound softened to a low hum. My heart made a noise that did not match the quiet. My phone lay on the nightstand next to the manila folder. The number for Sloan Patel was on the yellow square where I had left it. The digits looked familiar now, like a street a person has walked past every day without turning down. I pressed the folder flat with my palm, then moved my hand to the phone and touched the screen. The number went into the dialer. The green button lit up. I pressed call and it began to ring. Sloan answered on the second ring. Her voice carried traffic and a printer in the background. "Ms. Hale," she said, "this is Sloan Patel." I said my name as if testing it in a new room. I told her what the folder held, what the past months had felt like in the kitchen and the hallway. "Do you want to proceed?" she asked, "or do you want to talk options?" "I want to proceed," I said. The pause on her end was brief and practical. "Meet me at Red Cup on 28th in 20 minutes. Bring the deed. Bring any account summaries. We will begin." Red Cup smelled like burnt sugar and orange peel. A grinder chewed beans. A barista drew a leaf in milk. Sloan sat near the window in a navy raincoat that had dried in a hurry. She had a pen in her hair and a folder that matched mine in her bag. She did not fill the air with sympathy. She asked for papers, flipped knotted tabbed pages with little flags called a number, and spoke to someone at Cascadia First Bank. She kept her voice low and precise. Across from us, a student watched a video with headphones on and laughed at a joke neither of us could hear. Ms. Hale, Sloan said, covering the mic with her palm. "What you own is clean. The account structure puts you as the sole holder. We can freeze outgoing transfers tied to household auto pay to pause damage. We can file notice of possession with the court. We can prepare an offer that opens one small account after a signed waiver. If you ask for 30 days to vacate, a judge will not blink." Her pen tapped the table once. "But this is a switch on a wall. Once it goes up, it stays up." "I understand," I said. The tea had gone cool and bitter. I drank it anyway. She finished the call with Mr. Cobb at the bank. She emailed a packet to a paralegal. She printed a 2-page letter for the building office and slid it across to me to sign. My hand did not shake much. When I was done, she capped her pen and pushed my folder back to me like a baton. "Go home," she said. "Say nothing. I will move the pieces." Rain had thinned to a mist by the time I reached Hawthorne Commons. On the landing, I could hear Kelsey on speaker with someone named Miranda. The word vibe came up twice. Jason's laugh floated from the living room, an automatic sound that did not belong to anything in particular. I laid my keys on the dresser in my room and placed the manila folder under the top drawer. The paper was still cool. I looked at the blue plastic tag on my keyring, Unit 3B. The letters were scratched. The metal teeth had made a small line across my thumb over the months a notch from repetition. I closed my hand and felt it there. That evening, Kelsey leaned on the counter with a list in her hand and blocked the drawer where I kept measuring spoons. "I need you to move your things from the hallway closet," she said. "We are reorganizing. We have storage solutions, but we cannot work around your coats." I stepped back so she could yank the drawer and take the spoons as if they had always been hers. The sink smelled like lemon dish soap. The tile felt cold through my socks. Jason came in, kissed the air near her cheek, glanced at the pot, and set his phone beside the cutting board. "Soup again," Kelsey said. She dipped the ladle and tasted. Her mouth flattened. "It is salty." I put the lid on the pot and turned off the burner. Jason pulled up an app and tapped twice. 15 minutes later, a paper bag warm with steam arrived. They ate from plastic containers at the couch. The TV glowed. Rice and chicken smelled of soy and sweet pepper. I had a small bowl of my soup at the table and could taste the ocean where there was none. I washed the pot. The window showed our reflections in a black square. The deadbolt clicked when Jason tried it at the door. Then he turned the lock back and laughed at himself. The click traveled down the hall like a rule. The next morning, Sloan called from her office. "We have filed the notice of possession," she said. "Cascadia has confirmed the freeze on the household accounts you listed. Legal mail will go out today." I thanked her and hung up. My hands found the box of photographs. I put the fairy picture on my nightstand and left the lid open on purpose. By noon, Kelsey had her laptop on the table in a sour mood. She called the bank and asked for a manager. She said her full name slowly, then louder. Her mouth moved while she listened. The color left her face. "There is some mistake," she said into the phone. "There cannot be any holds. These are our accounts." Jason took the handset like a man guided by muscle memory. "This is Jason Hale." There has been a misunderstanding. He listened. He said the word mother in a tone he had never used for me. He listened longer. His eyes found mine in the doorway and then ran away. What do you mean the property is not in our name, he said. We live here. I walked into the kitchen. I set my palm on the edge of the table as if testing the finish. I will be clear, I said. These are my accounts. This is my condo. You have been using what belongs to me. Jason opened his mouth and then closed it. Kelsey laughed once. It had the brittle sound of something cracked and sharp. She pushed the laptop away and stood. You cannot do this, she said. You cannot put us in the street. You will not be in the street, I said. You will have 30 days. After that, there is a fee for occupying, use and occupancy, $500 a day. A judge will set it, not me. Kelsey took a step closer as if proximity could adjust facts. Her eyes narrowed. We will fight. You may, I said. It will take time. It will cost money you do not have. Or you may take an offer that will arrive with the mail. If you sign to leave voluntarily and waive claims, one small account will open. It will be enough for deposits and a moving truck. That is all. Silence settled like dust. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a delivery truck idled and then rolled away. Jason put the phone down without hanging up. The bank manager's voice was faint and then gone. He tried for kindness out of habit. Mom, can we talk about this? Maybe this is a misunderstanding. We have already talked, I said. You talked with your back turned. I listened to a door. Now I am talking with paper. He rubbed his eyes and sat. The chair made a bitten noise on the hardwood. Kelsey lifted her chin. You played us, she said, from the start. I folded the towel on the oven handle because it was crooked. I protected myself, I said, from the start. The man from the building office knocked 20 minutes later with a certified envelope. He asked for my signature and left quickly, eyes on the floor, as if he had delivered this kind of thing before, and did not want his face to be part of it. Kelsey stood in the hall with her arms folded. Jason lingered behind her with a look that could not find focus. I took the envelope to my room and opened it with a butter knife. Paper made its soft, crisp sound. Sloane's letter to them lay on top. Behind it were the forms with the offer spelled out in clean paragraphs. I placed the packet on the kitchen table when I came back out. For you, I said. Kelsey did not touch it. Jason slid it toward him with 2 fingers and read the first page. His throat moved when he swallowed. I need to think, he said. Kelsey jabbed a finger at the paper. We do not sign anything, she said. We call my father, we call a lawyer, we call whoever it takes. You can call, I said. I have hired the best I can afford. I am not guessing. This is done. She opened her mouth to say something that would have burned. The building buzzer sounded again and she jumped. She stared at the speaker like it might have a face. Then she spun toward the bedroom. The door shut so hard a picture frame on the hallway wall swung and settled. Jason pressed the bridge of his nose with thumb and finger. He looked at me and then at the keys on the table. The blue plastic tag caught a small rectangle of light and held it. He nodded once a little as if to a thought he did not like. When the bank called back, it was Mr. Cobb himself. Jason put him on speaker. Mr. Cobb was dry and careful. He confirmed the holds. He confirmed that my accounts were in my name. He confirmed that nothing could be unfrozen without my consent. He said the word mother as if it were a title. After he hung up, the apartment did what rooms do when people stop speaking. It breathed. Dot knocked on the open door jamb and leaned in with a bag of lemons and a look that wanted to be helpful but not intrusive. I shook my head once. She nodded and set the bag by my door and left without words. Kelsey came back to the living room with a face set for court. She stood across from me with her hands on her hips. You cannot win, she said. You cannot push us. I picked up the packet and tapped it into a neat pile. My finger left a small arc of moisture on the top page where the tea had condensed out of the air on my skin. 30 days, I said, to leave my house. Kelsey laughed short and bright. You are joking. Down the hall, someone in 3C dropped a stack of mail. Paper slid and shuffled. In the building office, a rubber stamp hit ink and then met a page. The sound was dull and certain, a small, soft thud that finished a thought. The sound from the building office had not faded when someone knocked. 3 small, even taps. Sloane stood in the doorway in a rain-black coat hair lifted at the ends from damp air. She held a thin leather folder and a flat smile that said she had done this before. Ms. Hale, she said. Good afternoon. Kelsey crossed her arms and did not return the greeting. Jason stepped aside. Sloane set her folder on the coffee table and pulled out a clipped stack of papers. She laid them down the way a chef puts out knives. This is a notice of possession already filed, she said, tapping the first page. This is my letter to you explaining the status of the accounts and the property title. This is an offer. If you sign to vacate voluntarily and waive claims related to the unit, Ms. Hale will authorize a limited release from a separate account for moving costs and deposits. 15 days from signatures to departure. If you decline, the 30-day clock runs with use and occupancy charges after that point. The court orders will follow the usual route. Kelsey let out a short laugh, more like a cough. That is blackmail. Sloane did not blink. It is an option. Jason took the top sheet and read, lips moving slightly as he tracked the lines. His eyes stuck to the paragraph about the 15 days. They slid down to the figure for the release. The number was not large. It was not generous. It was enough. He looked at me then at the keys on the table, then back to the paper. The blue tag caught the window light again and threw a small rectangle on the wood. He absorbed that as if it were part of the document. What happens if we fight? He asked, voice careful. Sloane answered without any heat. You are free to retain counsel. It will slow things down. It will not change where the title sits or who can authorize bank activity. You could spend months to land where you are standing now. Kelsey lifted her chin. You do not get to decide where I live. Correct, Sloane said. A judge does. That is what courts are for. Silence swelled and then fell away. A bus sighed outside and pulled off. Somewhere a child cried and then became quiet. The refrigerator kicked on a low, steady breath. Jason pushed the paper back to the middle of the table. His hands were not steady, but they were not shaking either. He looked like a man holding two doors and knowing one will close. 15 days, he said. Sloane nodded. From the time you sign. Kelsey pointed at the clause-waving claims. This is a trick. Sloane turned the page so the paragraph faced her. She read the sentence aloud with the same tone she would use to tell a stranger the time. This language is standard. It prevents you from filing later and pulling Ms. Hale back into disputes about a property she owns outright. You are giving up a fight you cannot win in exchange for money you need and a calendar you can plan. That is the trade. Kelsey stared at her. She took a step nearer the couch, then stopped, then paced a tight line on the rug. Jason sat down finally, as if gravity had decided for him. He picked up the pen Sloane had set on the folder and rolled it between his fingers. His thumb left a faint smudge on the barrel. I went to my room and returned with the box of photographs. I set it on the sideboard instead of the floor. The lid fit cleanly this time. I did not look at Kelsey when I did it. The gesture was small, but it moved something inside my chest back to where it belonged. We need a day, Jason said. You have today, Sloane said. And tomorrow morning. I will be back at 9. She gathered her folder and left. The door clicked like a freckle on the day. Rain started again. It was fine enough to look like the air had texture. Kelsey paced. She called her father. She said phrases that had no use here. Unbelievable. Outrageous. We have rights. Jason watched her mouth and then looked away and then rubbed the back of his neck as if something there hurt. He found me in the kitchen later with a small legal pad and a pencil. The basil Dot had given me sat on the sill in its pie plate. It had perked up since morning. The leaves were glossy. The room smelled like green and lemon and stainless steel. He spoke without looking at me. I did not know about the deed, he said. I should have known. You did not ask, I said. He breathed in and out. I was careless, he said. I let it get easy to ignore. That is on me. Kelsey came in, saw us standing there, and stiffened. She took a glass from the cabinet, realized it was one she had pushed to the back weeks ago, and set it down like it might shatter. Her voice softened, but did not bend. Jason, we are not signing, she said. We get a lawyer. We fight. He did not answer. He stared at the lemon on the counter. He looked like anyone would look looking at a lemon when the only thing they could count on was that it was real. Night pressed itself against the windows. The building quieted in the way buildings do when the last delivery is over and the last hallway conversation has trailed off. I lay down and watched the ceiling shift from gray to darker gray. Sleep came in pieces. Morning put a clean face on the kitchen. Sloane came at 9 wearing a charcoal sweater and boots that had left their wet outside. She set 3 copies of the agreement on the table and placed a pen on each. She looked at Jason. She looked at Kelsey. She did not look at me because she did not need to. "We can sign now," she said. Kelsey stared at the print. She read without really reading. Her eyes stopped at words that only mattered to people who wanted them to matter. Jason read every line. His finger tracked the sentences. He asked one question about a fee that did not apply. He nodded at the answer. Kelsey broke first, not by agreeing, but by aiming her last arrow. "You are not fit," she said to me. "We will have you evaluated. We will show you cannot manage your affairs. Then you will not own anything. We will put you in care and sell this place." Sloane did not move. She looked at the page. There is a part of this that will make any later maneuver like that look like the thing it is, she said. Retaliation. I reached into the drawer where I kept tea. Under the box was a small black recorder I had bought after the night at the sink. I set it on the table and touched the button. A small red light woke up. "I document," I said. "I keep paper. I keep audio. I have witnesses." Dot's plant watered the air with its scent. The recorder sat in a neat square of sunlight. Kelsey's face changed. Not fear, not yet. Something more like calculation met a wall. Jason's shoulders dropped a fraction. He picked up the pen. His signature on the first page was not elegant. It was exactly like the one on his birthday cards when he was 8. He signed the second page. He signed the last. He pushed the pen to Kelsey. She held it over the line and did not touch paper. Her breath hitched. She set the pen down. She picked it up. She signed. Sloane collected the pages and slid them into a fresh folder of her own. She clicked the clasp. The sound felt final, but not loud. 15 days, she said. "I will coordinate with the bank for the limited release. You will get a confirmation today. The rest stays frozen." No one argued. There was nothing left to argue. She left. Jason stood by the window with both hands on the sill as if steadying a boat. Kelsey stared at the ceiling and blinked fast and then stopped blinking. I took the recorder and tucked it back in the drawer. Then I reached for the box of photographs and drew out the picture from the ferry. Tom's hair had been wild that day. The wind had smacked his face and made him laugh. His mouth was open. You could almost hear it. Kelsey turned to me with new hardness. "You think this makes you safe," she said. "You think paper keeps you strong." I rested the picture on the sideboard and pressed the lid on the box. The cardboard made a clean fit sound. "I think it remembers what I say when no one else does," I said. She stepped forward, then stopped. Her shoulders squared, her mouth set. I opened the drawer again and took out the tiny USB that matched the recorder. A piece of blue tape on it held the word kitchen in neat pen. I set it by the packet Sloane had left, and I pressed play. Voices filled the room close and real. Kelsey's own words began to rise from the little speaker, the ones that had come through the cracked door clear enough to carry. The recording crackled and then settled into clarity. Kelsey's voice filled the room as if she had stepped outside her body and come back as a witness. "I cannot keep doing this. It is the apartment or me." The little speaker made it sound smaller but not softer. Jason rubbed his jaw and stared at the edge of the table. When the file ended, I pressed stop. The red light went out. No one spoke. From the hallway came the slow climb of someone taking the stairs one at a time. A door opened 2 floors below and thudded shut. By noon, the building manager taped a pale notice to our door with a strip of blue painter's tape. The tape had a faint chemical smell that mixed with the hall's coffee and wool. The paper fluttered when anyone passed, then lay flat again. Jason read it top to bottom, then once more as if another ending might appear. Kelsey stared at the word possession, as if the print itself had insulted her. Dot lifted her head from her mail slot and did not pry. She gave me a quick look that held, then went back to flipping envelopes. A flyer for a yoga class fell from the bulletin board and slid under someone's shoe. That night, Jason pawed through a stack of bills at the kitchen table. He had pulled the lamp closer, so the light made a circle on the wood. The blue key tag sat inside that circle like it belonged to the light. He had a legal pad with columns and numbers. He framed the words out loud like he was afraid they would vanish if he did not. "If I sell the Civic," he said, "and we pawn the old TV and the camping gear and a few other things, I can put together about $3,000. Deposits run higher than that. First and last in most places." He did not look at me. He looked at the pad. He ran his thumb along the edge of the paper and made a curl of pulp. "I am asking if you will open one small account," he said. "Enough for deposits. I do not expect you to fix anything else." Kelsey stood in the doorway with her arms crossed over a sweatshirt. She listened without stepping in. Her mouth was set. Her eyes slid to the recorder in the drawer and then away. I pulled out a chair and sat. The lamp made the air look thicker over the table. The basil on the sill had outgrown its pie plate. The leaves made a dark little ship in the glass. "If I do this," I said, "there are conditions. You sign the waiver. You move within the time. You do not bring a fight later. You keep Kelsey from trying to pull me into anything more." Kelsey's eyebrows climbed and fell. "Keep me," she said soft. "That is a word." Jason did not react to her tone. He nodded at me instead. "I will sign," he said. "I will move. I will keep it clean." I picked up the phone and called Sloane. She answered the way people do who do not waste air. "He is asking for a small release," I said. "I want the waiver to stand between us like a door. I want no handle on his side." "The language already does that," she said. "But we will add a line to make the door look obvious. I will arrange the transfer once you confirm." I looked at Jason. He was watching my mouth the way a person watches a judge read a verdict. I said yes. Sloane thanked me and said she would send an updated page within the hour. After I hung up, the apartment felt like a bridge with no people on it. Jason exhaled and closed his eyes for a half second. Kelsey made a small sound in her throat like a laugh that had lost its way. When the new page arrived, Sloane came by with a pen and the soft smell of winter air on her coat. Jason signed again. Kelsey signed without comment. Sloane folded the papers like something precious and left them with a word to the point. Done. Later, when the hall was quiet and the upstairs neighbor had stopped walking, I called Sloane again and asked for a different favor. She listened until I finished the sentence. "Can you get a small amount of cash into Jason's hands?" I said, "and a letter. To him alone." "Yes," she said. "Do you want to tell me the amount and the tone?" 1,000, I said. The tone is firm and kind. It is not a promise. It is food. It is breath. I wrote the letter at the table. I crossed out more words than I kept. I said what I could say without saying what I could not. I did not name forgiveness. I did not name hope. I named a month of groceries. I named a bed that was not the floor. When I sealed the envelope, it looked small in my hands. Sloane came by the next morning and slid both into her bag. She did not ask me if I was sure. She did not tell me I was generous. She zipped the bag and went to work. The days left on the notice came off the calendar one by one. Tape squealed as boxes took shape. A roll of bubble wrap popped in the next room as if someone were pinching tiny birds. Kelsey kept to the bedroom or to the street on her phone. Jason posted their dining set and a stack of comic books and a 3-speed bike with a crooked fender on a parking app, and handed pieces of their life to strangers who said they had always loved mid-century furniture. I stayed out of the way. I made soup and did not serve it. I took the basil off the sill and repotted it into something with a bottom that would not leak on the paint. Water ran through the soil and darkened the clay. It smelled like a small warm garden. On moving day, a rental truck with a blue stripe pulled into the front spot at 9. The driver had a look of permanent patience. He handed Jason a clipboard and then a stretch of quilted pad. The halls filled with the soft thud of boxes and the scrape of taped handles across door frames. The living room blinked as each piece left and the light shifted on new bare patches. Jason knocked on my door and came in with a box light enough to carry with one hand. "These are yours," he said, "the photos." I kept them aside. He set the box on the bed and stepped back. He had shaved. A small nick shone on his jaw like a tiny bright bead. He did not try to fix it. "Thank you," I said. He nodded, then looked at the closet. The wool coats hung in a neat row with their shoulders squared. He reached for the third hanger and stopped his hand an inch from the fabric. He let his arm drop and walked out. Kelsey came to the doorway when the truck was 3/4 full. She looked both tall and tired. Her sweatshirt had a stain on the sleeve and she had not noticed. She glanced at the recorder drawer and at the box of photographs. Her mouth softened and then did not. "I hope you enjoy your victory," she said. I watched her eyes, not her mouth. They had a new flatness, as if someone had traded the glass for stone. She turned away and lifted a box labeled books. It looked heavier than it was. She carried it down the hall with her chin angled up the way people in pictures carry banners. At noon, the door frame had black smudges on the left side at the height of a hand. The rug rolled itself and left a darker rectangle where it had lived. Jason signed paperwork against the hood of the truck. He closed the clipboard and handed it back. He came inside for one more look at the room that had been theirs. He touched the window glass with his palm for no reason at all. He stopped at my door. "Thank you for the money," he said, and then he stopped himself. He looked down at his shoes. "Thank you for the letter. You have a month of food," I said. "That is what you have." He nodded. His eyes were thick. He reached forward and then dropped his hand and did not ask for a hug. He took his keys from the bowl by the door and winced when the blue tag brushed his knuckle. He paused at the threshold and then left. The truck engine made a deep waiting sound, then grew smaller as it turned onto the street and away. The apartment exhaled. Dust swirled where furniture had been. A single paper clip lay on the floor by the wall like a small metal fish. Dot tapped the door with her knuckles and came in without looking too long at the empty. She had a bottle of white with a grocery store label and 2 plastic cups. We sat on the floor. The wood was cool through my jeans. The wine tasted like pear and a little like the refrigerator it had lived in. We touched the rims together and said nothing that would harm the air. When she left, I plugged in the small white noise machine I had bought on a day I could not stand the elevator's clank. I set it to surf. The sound of waves filled the room in an old radio kind of way. It was not the ocean. It was the memory of the idea of one. I lay back on the floor and let it wash in and out. Evening drew a gray veil over the windows. Sloane called from her car. I could hear her turn signal counting a patient rhythm. "I want you to know," she said, Cascadia flagged several credit lines tied to Kelsey. "There are balances you did not know about. They are not your problem. They are heavy." "How heavy?" I asked. 20 in total," she said. "Maybe more when late fees pile. Jason will hear from collectors. He should be ready." "Thank you," I said. "Of course," she said. "Sleep tonight." After I hung up, I stared at the ceiling until the lines of the drywall blurred. I felt the pull of old habits in my hands. Fix, soften, call, and make a plan. I stood and walked to the sink and washed the 2 cups. The water beat a steady rhythm on plastic. I dried them and put them upside down on the counter. My phone buzzed as I was folding the towel. A number I did not know showed a city across the river. I answered. "Mom," Jason said. His voice was low. Traffic hissed around him. I got the envelope. "Thank you. I'm not asking you for anything else. I'm only saying it helped. Eat real food," I said. "Sleep if you can." "I will," he said. He paused. "I'm sorry." The word did not fix anything. It sat in the air like a glass marble. It caught light and threw it. I did not try to catch it. "Good night," I said. When the call ended, the apartment lifted into a clean quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the small tick of the baseboard heat, the soft ocean from the white noise. I picked up the basil and took it to the sink and gave it a little water. The scent rose and filled the kitchen until it felt like a tiny garden had opened under my hands. I opened my laptop at the table. The screen painted a cold light on my fingers. I typed the address of Hawthorne Commons into a form that asked for square footage and year built. I uploaded 3 pictures that made the place look bigger than it was. The cursor blinked on a blank line. I wrote 3 sentences about natural light and hardwood floors and quiet mornings. The page asked for a price. I took a breath and picked a number. The mouse clicked. The screen showed a button for publish and another for save. I pressed the one that required more nerve. A small banner appeared in the corner with a soft chime. Listing received, it said. An icon spun and then went still. The offer turned into a date. The date turned into a set of papers that arrived in a stiff envelope and waited for my signature. On closing day, the conference room smelled like fresh copier toner and coffee. A woman in a pinstripe jacket slid forms across the table and pointed to lines. I signed where she tapped. The pen felt heavy and right. When it was over, I set the keys to Unit 3B on the table, blue tag, up teeth shining. The woman swept them into a small dish like a dealer collecting chips. Back at Hawthorne Commons, I wiped the counters with lemon spray until the room smelled clean and sharp. The light made a white stripe along the empty counter edge. Dot came by with an armful of grocery bags and left with 2 houseplants and a hug that lasted 1 second longer than usual. The elevator groaned like an old throat. I carried the last box to the curb and watched a crow hop on the wet sidewalk, head cocked, clever, and black. A week later, I unlocked a small house in Manzanita with a brass key that had no tag. The door stuck a little at the top. Salt lived in the hinges. The front room faced the ocean, a low gray plain that breathed. When the wind paused, the air tasted soft. When it picked up, it stung my tongue. White curtains lifted and fell like someone sleeping. I slept the first night on a mattress on the floor. The house creaked near the kitchen as if it was thinking. In the morning, a gull walked along the porch rail and looked in. I made tea and stood by the window with the mug warming my hands. The surf wrote the same line on the sand and erased it and wrote it again. I set the box of photographs on the bookshelf and did not open it the first week. Instead, I hung a small frame with Tom on the ferry. I let the rest sit. The urge to fill the walls was there, and I let it go for a while. The house had its own face. I wanted to learn it. Dot drove down the second Saturday with a basket of herbs and a stubborn GPS. She had printed directions and stuck them to the dashboard with tape. We walked to the water in our sneakers and stood with the tide touching our toes. The wind carried cold and a clean smell, something like iron and something like mint. Dot laughed and shouted into the air. The words blew sideways and left the laugh behind. On a Tuesday, I went into town for bread and saw Kelsey in the small grocery near the post office. She stood by a stack of off-brand cereal, turning a box over and over as if more words would appear if she kept moving it. Her hair was pulled into a knot, and her sweatshirt had a tiny hole near the shoulder. She looked up and saw me. Her mouth tightened. She set the box down and walked away without looking back. I put a loaf in my basket and paid with cash, the bills warm from my pocket. Outside, the wind snapped a prayer flag on a porch. Sand ticked against my shoes. A month passed like sea weather. The house learned me. I learned the stubborn window latch and the clack of the heater when it wakes. I put hooks by the door and hung the new keys there. There was a space left empty as a small held breath. One afternoon, I watered lavender in the yard and heard a car on the lane. An old sedan rolled to a stop in a plume of dust. Jason stepped out. He wore jeans that fit a plain jacket, clean shoes. He stood with both hands empty and looked at the house the way you look at a place you have seen in a picture. "Hi, Mom," he said. I set the hose down on the grass and wiped my hands on my pants. The water made a shallow path around my shoe and sank into the soil. "You can come in," I said, "if you want." He shook his head and stayed on the gravel, then changed his mind and came to the porch. He kept his voice steady. "I left Kelsey 3 months ago," he said. "I moved into a studio near the river. I got a job at a warehouse that pays every Friday. It is not much. It is clear. I started seeing someone on Tuesdays, a man who asks questions I do not want to answer and waits for me to answer them. I'm paying on time. I'm not spending what I do not have." He looked at the water ring on the porch rail and did not touch it. "I am not asking you for anything," he said. "I am telling you I am not the same as I was." "Good," I said. The word felt simple and clean in my mouth. "There are rules with me." He nodded. "There should be." I went inside and poured lemonade into 2 clean glasses. I added ice and carried them out, one in each hand. The glasses sweated. The ice clicked when I set them down. "We can start outside," I said. "Help me with the lavender first. Talking is easier when your hands are full of something else." He took the hose. He watered without drowning the roots. He leaned into the work a little. The air smelled like rosemary and wet dust. A small brown spider crossed the porch boards and disappeared into a seam near the post. We sat later with our glasses on the rail. The sea was steel and then pewter and then gray-blue. 2 dogs chased a stick and forgot to bring it back. A boy fell and then stood and looked around and kept going. "This place fits you," Jason said. I like the sound, I said. We did not reach for the past. We let it sit where it was. The lemonade was tart and cold. It made my mouth wake up. He touched the rim of his glass and left a clean print. He looked better than he had looked in years. Not younger, just more like himself. He stood to leave when the sun got low and the wind picked up a needle of chill. At the steps, he stopped and turned back. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For not making this harder than it has to be?" I nodded. He took a small step forward and paused. I stepped toward him and we met in a short, firm hug. It held and then let go. He went to the car, started the engine, and rolled away. The sound faded and left the surf and the small clap of a loose gate down the lane. Inside, I picked up the box of photographs and set it on the table. I opened the lid and took out 3. Tom on the ferry, Jason in a paper crown at a kitchen table, me with flour on my face and my hands in a bowl. I stood with them for a quiet minute and then put them back. The lid fit with a soft slide. I returned the box to the shelf. I did not need the pictures to explain anything. They could rest. My phone lit on the counter. A text from a number I knew now without looking. A photo of a receipt with a name for a clinic and a time, a Tuesday. Under it 2 words. Next week. I hung the brass keys on the hook by the door and left the space beside them empty. The window was open a little and the room tasted like salt. The curtains moved. I sat in the chair by the window and watched the water until the horizon melted into the dark. The house settled in small clicks. The tide began to climb. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.